Welcome to the world's finest strike podcast, where we bring you voices of the sea. Subscribe now.
Great. Welcome to the podcast. I'd like to introduce Anya. Anya, I've we've met on LinkedIn. You've got a great story. Anything AI related, I'm interested in, especially the infrastructure, like how it's built up. There's a lot of different components. A lot people don't realize that are there. But if you'd like, please introduce yourself.
Patrick, thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here. And my name is Anya Eydman, and I am a founder of Aria Energy. And at Aria Energy, we focus on trust building and also on what can be done in the last mile delivery for commercialization of innovation in renewable energy space. There's a lot that's going on. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of expansion. There's a lot of talk about nuclear. So renewable energy is a very alive industry and vertical right now in terms of investments, innovation, application, best use cases, and for the last 3 years, I have been focused on understanding, building, and expanding my own horizons in learning how to adapt to new technologies, new administration policies, new waves of innovation within this space that has been in existence for decades now.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, and that's part of just the process. And I think I was reading one of your articles, you were talking about infrastructure of service, AI as a service, just everything being out there, being available to people. And I've worked with AWS for quite a few years. Of course, Google has their uh, hybrid models and uh, just a way of expanding away, because people have gotten away from creating their own data centers and putting out that think of about the capital expense that they'd have to invest. How much does it cost to run every month? And kind of eliminating the CapEx and just focusing on OpEx processes. And now with AI and the amount of energy it takes to supply those tools to organizations. A story I was thinking about earlier was last year I did a book signing and I was in Northwest Indiana where I grew up, and there were signs all over the place. They were trying to get rid of a proposal for a new data center. And of course, have you seen a lot of data centers out there just popping up where people are buying land and then building data centers for AI? Is that something you've seen a lot?
Um, so I live in New York City. So in New
Oh,
York City, we don't have that, so we don't see that. But we do
mhm,
live in this reality of information and
mhm,
energy, and also of technology merging into one industry. So
mhm,
there's a lot of companies that have been known for, let's say, construction or energy work, are now working together and finding partnerships and building collaborative practices to make things easier. I mean, yes, you're mentioning AI as a service, um, power generation as a service, energy as a service. So those are some of the realities that we're entering and we're living in. And there is a little bit of adaptation that needs to take place because with data centers, there are layers of complexity that seem to be invisible because it's no longer what it used to be. Because now, when we talk about data centers and the energy usage, we need to be very mindful of how much resource is actually being utilized. And resource utilization has always been a concern, and always there are um, energy, climate and energy justice groups. There are social justice groups that now taking an active role in putting some of the bans on utilization of new technologies. And
Mhm.
also, we need to be very mindful and understanding what is actually occurring in the cities like New York, where we are going to be stranded for energy for our basic needs, such as cooling during hot summer peaks. And I think we are very quickly, or within the last maybe year or 6 months, we really quickly jumped into data center focus and AI
Mhm.
focus without actually understanding what's at stake. And at stake are human lives,
Mhm.
that energy affordability is becoming a very critical and dominant conversation, because people who are not technically savvy, who might be disabled or otherwise unable to keep up with the latest tools, technologies, and really make sense like what is it all about, um, just need basic needs met, and sometimes they use their houses as a that's pretty much their reality. So providing and being very conscientious how we use technology, what we use it for, and obviously we definitely want to be moving forward and creating new ways of innovation, but at what cost? So the cost is really a big discussion here in New York City and New York State.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree 100%. Thinking of, just the city itself to run the infrastructure, that energy, people just can't take it away. Let's say they build a data center on Long Island or out in New Jersey, that corporations shouldn't be trying to siphon off any energy that might be going to New York City just for daily life, just to power the new technology. So that's a great point. Something I don't think a lot of people are aware of or even think of, that this is an
Yeah, if you're
impact
not,
just on everybody.
yeah, if you're not, it's really hard to track down the news because everything
Hmm.
is positioned as a signal of high frequencies in a sense for us to respond to it, whether we think it's
Hmm.
good or bad, yes or no. But we do not take the time oftentimes to dig into understanding. And the understanding is really personal, and it's really
Hmm.
unique in terms of what is it that we're trying to understand. We're trying to understand how our sense of reality fits with the news that are being shared. So I obviously everyone is aware that we have to be taking everything with a grain of salt, and especially
Hmm.
nowadays as more content is being created, as more news is getting shared, there's a lot more information about AI and energy dominance and sovereignty, and every country now wants to have energy sovereignty as well. So those are some of the signals to be curious about, not necessarily to be taking sides very quickly. And at this point, it's really
Hmm.
hard to assess and say whether AI expansion is good or bad. It's inevitable since we are in it. However, really
Hmm.
being mindful in understanding what it means to daily lives. I can share a little bit about how I, for example, use AI, and
Hmm.
how it helped me learn and get to the position of advisory role where I'm at right now. And obviously, every single person that is trying or attempting or playing around in understanding AI has their own unique application of this technology. So I think by sharing and coming together and understanding the use cases that are applicable to our lives is really the key here to eliminate fear and open up empowerment. And how do we embody the the current reality by actually being champions of possibilities and making our own lives, a lot easier or more manageable. So I think, it's always really important to level set. Yes, AI, service, everything is a service now. I mean, we order food in New York,
Hmm.
most of us order food, it's a service. Food is no longer a homemade, like very little of it is a homemade,
Hmm.
shared process. It's like, okay, it's on the go. So we
Hmm.
outsource that. So similarly to that, there's a lot of other uh, components of our life, of wellness, of education, of networking that's being outsourced right now. And also, a lot of creativity and imagination is being now outsourced with the tools of AIs. But it's important to understand that. As a human, we have emotions, and that's
Hmm.
something that's very unique to human experience, where we are able to utilize that to our advantage and create workflows, possibilities, and retrain ourselves. How do we think differently now with assistance of this enormously powerful research tool?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's a great way of, the good segue for us is just, t tell me a little more about your journey and how you got here, just within the process of your learning. Like, how did you discover this and go, this could be, something I need to research more. I want to invest my time and energy into your learning about the new technologies. How did you get here, and what was that like kind of aha moment to say, I need to go in this direction and build a new segment of my life? And because it sounds like you might have started in one spot, and now here you are, and you're just combining your past experiences with the future and the way we're going.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Patrick. Thank you for asking. There's a lot in there. Last 3 years of my life and experience have been nothing like I've ever lived or experienced in the past. So there's a lot there. However, I'll share how I got to become a writer, and
Hmm.
I that's something that really opened up in the last 3 years for me. Since I was little, about 8 years old, I always wanted to be a writer. And my family immigrated to United States when I was 15, so language became a barrier. And then, as teenage years, and then going into college, and then quickly forming a family and building a unit, and getting a corporate, all of the steps that are involved in the success journey put me away from this inner desire of wanting to be a writer. And for a very long time, I put that creative inkling from inside into the world around me. I've built businesses. I entered into new initiatives. I made sense of marketing, of disasters and things that became part of my life, and by creating an environment where I felt my family, myself would thrive. So I was living my own plot, so to speak. I know a lot of
Hmm.
readers might, or listeners might relate to that. And 3 years ago, I left my job, and I decided, what is it that I would do if I did not have to work, right? Like, if I did
Hmm.
not have to work for a paycheck, what would I choose to do? And that's a really loaded, you know, inquiry, right? I wouldn't say I was going to. I mean, I think every day some sort of transformation nowadays, right, with AI and all the revelations
Hmm.
they can uncover just by putting in a couple of prompts. But what actually occurred for me, I decided to put aside many identities that I build and I got attached to over time, and to really embrace the identity that I never took out of the closet, the 8-year-old desire to
Hmm.
be a writer. So I started writing. I took a couple of poetry classes, and I took a couple of social justice writing classes. And
Hmm.
those were probably, I mean, outside from college and, capstones and all the writing that you do because you have to, this was something that I wanted to unlock within myself. So I went on a very deep kind of discovery and journey of finding my voice. And I definitely embrace AI for helping me find that. Very quickly, I became a cyber poet. And what that entails, for about a year and a half, I had a practice of writing a poem the first thing in the morning. As soon as I wake up, I would write a poem. So, and within about 30 to 45 minutes, and a couple of edits and redrafts, using some of the LLMs, I would get to the point where I felt like what I was reading was resonating with my inner being. And some of it would be really happy moments of emotion, some of it would be experiences of pain, sorrow, loss. Whatever came up that morning was what I would
Hmm.
put in place and I would write about. So I actually collected probably over 600 poems right now. And I know we didn't talk about poetry at all because it was
Right.
focusing more on business writing and trust infrastructure. But that's how I started unlocking my voice, by
Hmm.
writing poetry and by recording myself reading it out loud, and hearing myself recite the poetry that I write. Um, and over time, I began to feel that inner calling, inner voice wanting to come out more and be reflective of my professional reality around energy, around infrastructure, around electrification, renewables, any topic that I would be exposed to, discussing, working on, now became something that I had a deeper layer of meaning that was rooted based on my lived experience by running impact programs, by participating in a lot of volunteer and social work, social justice work. And as a result, now I'm about halfway through writing a book that's called Trust Infrastructure. And I'll pause here to give you a moment to ask more
Oh,
questions.
sure. And that's great because and a lot of people, when they start writing again, like I said, you always had that dream. A lot of people have had that dream over the years, but I think they were saying like 88% of the people, in the country want to write a book, but there's only like 2% that actually do. So congratulations on going down that path and really seeing, making that dream come true. For my experience, my nephew wrote a book and he's 24 years old, so he's a lot younger than I am. Obviously, my son is like his age, so definitely a lot younger than I am. But he wrote a book and he published it. And I said, well, you know what? I have this story just kind of sitting off to the side, kind of dusted it off the shelf, and I just kept building it. And a couple years later, like I said, just finding that voice. And what I really like about AI now is that before I'd have to call somebody up and ask them like, what do you think about this phrase? How do you think, my ideas kind of panning out? Now I have AI as a writing partner where I can ask questions like, am I going in the right direction here? Where can you help me with this? Can I unhit writer's block is kind of going away nowadays, which is a good thing. But, I'd love to hear about the poetry. And if you have that poetry available and if it's out there, I'd love to read it. because I always
Yeah, I'll stress
enjoy just hearing about the poetry. But yeah, I think the writing process is getting so much easier. But I think people just have to take that first step, outline what you want to say, and then just start building off of, just your daily thoughts and in memories, because of course that's where a lot of the writing comes from. But I love the fact of, trust and infrastructure, knowing that here, this, I would think that that's going to be paying the bills more than just maybe the fun projects that you have on the side. Like, hey, this is one has to fund the other one. That's the way I kind of look at it as well, because I haven't really told anybody this, and of course I'm yelling it out on a podcast, but I actually got my draft back on my children's book I created for my grandson. So
All right.
why am I a
Congrats.
children's book writer? But I have a grandson. He's 5 months old, and his name's Carter. So of course, if it's Carter, well, Carter loves cars. My son loves cars. I love cars. Guess what? Playing cards is a fun thing for kids, and I created a children's book for that. So I'm trying to figure out how to get that published. I'll figure it out. I did one book, and of course I mentioned the intermittent fasting, but it's a great process. And now that once you become that published author, that you put that on the resume as well, and just something that people can't take that away from you. And it's
Yeah.
so freeing. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said about the writing process, and I think technology, AI, and lots of um, lots of tools out there make it a lot more accessible. But at the same time, it's the same thing as always. How do you find time to do it?
Mhm.
So one of and again, I've been trying and I've been working through not so much of the writer's block, because it seems like the second I was able to unlock this voice and find the time to actually give give it, I became a lot more aware of what the writing process is all about. So writing process is not about getting it right the first time. Writing process is it's important to have the first draft, and the first draft becomes really this working document that evolves into something that that lives outside of you. So now you get into a relationship with every first working draft. So one of the ways to do it, as I mentioned, was to wake up in the morning and write a couple of thoughts and not really worry about rhyme or for it to make sense. And a lot of people have been using journaling, but again, journaling have been really a focus of dealing with inner waves, emotions, and processes. But journaling can be also viewed as a very creative process of unlocking what's behind the layer of emotion. So, one of the practices is to write something first thing in the morning. And the second practice is also using AI tools. And I've been using voice AI for over a year now, is to actually record yourself talking about the topic that you want to write about. And once you do that, then let's say you talk for 5 minutes. I really want to write this article, and this is why I'm passionate about writing, and this is why it makes sense, and these are some of the experiences that I've had about it, and this is why it's important for me to write about it today. And as soon as you have that, now with transcripts, you have a draft. You have a draft, and then again, you can use this draft and put it in your favorite LLM and start working immediately on formatting it. I think the key here, and I want to stress this again and again, being really in touch with what it is that you're passionate about writing, because LLMs, the language is endless and they can take you places that you didn't even know exist. And you are the driver. You're in the driving seat of this creation, and the creation process is something that you need to hold on to tightly. So being at the forefront of the creative process is really important, because now you are able to do research within seconds, and now you're able to compare it and edit it, and bring editors from your favorite books and different types of tones and voices and all the things. The key is to be sounding like yourself, to yourself. So I think with all the work that we're doing with AI, whether it's infrastructure or personal passions, we need to now more than ever be really centered in who are we, what is it that we're communicating, and why is it important to do so right now. If we lose sense of that, then it becomes noise. What we write becomes noise. What we write becomes somewhat meaningless. And if it's becoming meaningless to us as a writer, then whoever's receiving it and reading it will not really be engaged in the message. So and I'll circle it back to trust infrastructure and why I write about it and what makes me passionate about it. Last mile delivery, and how do we bring impact with all the work that we're doing in energy, in infrastructure, with AI, with data centers? How are we combining technology and we actually using it to benefit humanity and preserving life on Earth, rather than continuous expansion and never-ending consumption? So that's really what's driving me in being deterministic and in really honing in on that last mile delivery. How does this affect communities? How does the trust gets built within the communities? How do I begin to trust myself in the word that I'm saying by using AI that sometimes, has hallucination, as they call it, and takes you to different directions? How do we set guardrails and ensure that we are creating meaning and really creating significant imprint of what's possible for the future? How do we create the future today?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's the important part, is just maintaining, of course, everybody's concerned about, oh, AI is going to take my job. It's just going to be running the world, but we have to be able to control it. And I think it just starts with us, just as individuals, where when we control what the AI does for us, and like you said, your voice, if you can have a model and it knows your voice, it knows who you are, it could just be an extension of yourself. Just like if I have a software developer working for me, if he utilizes an AI tool to assist him, that's great. It's still his voice, it's still um, his process flow to create the software tools that he's trying to complete. Because of course I work in the software industry myself within the contact center. But yeah, I've seen organizations where they would just lay off a lot of people, say, "Oh, we're going to use just vibe coding." It's not right. Like I said, some of those hallucinations, because they're just trying to let it run and trying to cut those corners, is taking the humanity out of the technology that really should be there. But um, I wanted to find out a little more about what you were talking about earlier. Is just like you said, you wake up in the morning, you write down your thoughts. That's excellent. But then you went into recording your voice. What tools do you use to record your voice and kind of capture what you're doing?
I use a number of different tools. I use a number of different tools to record my meetings, and I have a lot of meetings, and that's been really helpful in terms of understanding complexities that I sometimes might not have expertise in. So that's one way. I recording meetings. Obviously, everyone's using different type of Zoom, and every platform now has a recording capability. Some companies are not on board with recordings, others
Hmm.
are. So depending on your own preference and actually how you view what you're able to do with the recording, because you need to understand that, and everyone needs to understand. So now you have a recording of a conversation, let's say of a meeting, right, from irrelevant to work. What do you do with it? Well, for me, number one is I always work towards improving my own personal best, way of engagement, my personal best way of communication, my personal best of delivering the message that was meaningful for that meeting. And obviously these AI tools and that record the voice now are able to give you a lot of data points on how you can improve, and I use it for that. My personal mission and goal is to become a communicator of meaning, and to do that, I have to constantly work on my own voice delivery, on my own pitch, tone, and also how I show up. As I told you before this call, I needed a minute to gather my thoughts, to understand what it is that I'm going to be talking about, rather than jumping from one meeting to the next. And oftentimes now with technology, we are in a position where we have 5 meetings back to back every day, and then we expect it to follow up with emails and work to be done afterwards. So now AI becomes a tool, and we're able to do more with the same amount of time that we have. However, for creative practices, being really building that relationship with your own voice, I think, is really important, and not being afraid of raw emotion, of maybe tears, of laughter, of pauses. It's a natural process of letting meaning come out. So I think there is a lot to be said and done in terms of practice. So I feel the more that we use, and voice AI is now, I actually worked with a company that was putting out voice AI as a product. And there's a lot that can be done. There's a lot of information that can be shared through the voice, either voice that sounds like me, that knows a lot more about the way that I think, or the voice can be trained in just sounding like me, but being more of a directory. So voice is really a powerful tool to, again, to be more productive, to unlock personal passions and pursuits, and to continuously build that inner trust within yourself, because what you say matters, how you say matters, and how it lands also matters. So taking emotion about, oh, I don't have anything to say, oh, I'll just listen in, I'll have other people speak, all that inner dialogue where we constantly suppress the voice that we have, we do need to let it out in order for it to start shaping and forming into meaningful, deliberate messenger, right? Like voice delivers a message. And we have a lot to share based on our own experiences. And obviously with LLMs, there have been, especially a year or so ago, who's training LLM, what kind of data is being used for that training, is it representative of a overall pool of humanity? All of those things those are the questions that we kind of put aside right now, and now we all AI data centered focus. But again, we do need to be really intentional in wanting to unlock the meaning behind our own voices. It's a translation. Voice is a translation of unconscious, subconscious mind into the reality that can be shared now with other people, and other people can be evaluating or contributing to to some of the thoughts and meanings, and really expanding their own mind capacity to think deeper and more intentionally.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's that voice, like you said, that's what keeps us who we are, is our voice. And that's something that, I was looking to see, like, do you use anything special? But because even if you just do a dictation tool, that works out great as well. I use a thing called Whisper Flow. And if you ever see Whisper Flow, it's pretty nice, because if you ever get one of my texts and it's really long, it's because I'm probably walking a dog. I just hit Whisper Flow. I just talk into it, and it's just my voice. And what it does is it will clean up a lot of what I say, like I mentioned earlier about the ums and ahs, that takes that
Yeah.
out. And especially that's how because I do have some AI agents that I built, and that's how I talk to them. So it's either through WhatsApp or Telegram. I just hit the button, I talk into it. No prompt engineering. I'm not doing any of the stuff to say, you're my this and act this way. I just talk to it, say, hey, find this information. This is what I'm looking for. And I just talk to it like kind of a human being, but so it knows my voice. And then if it's creating something for me, an email response, a social media post, it would be in my voice, because they hear how I speak and how it's phrased within Whisper Flow. But that's one of the tools I use just
I
to
use
communicate to it.
Tactic.
Oh,
Yeah, I use
tactic.
Tactic. Yeah, Tactic, and I also use voice notes quite regularly
Hmm.
for capturing, and again, raw thoughts. Or sometimes if I am attending a conference, and there might be 10 or 20 speakers per day, I try to record uh, maybe 5 minutes or so of conversation or panel discussion, and then I review that later to make sure that I capture the essence and the meaning of some of the topics that are coming up, like nuclear literacy, power generations, and there's a lot of discussion about modular modular builds of power generation and data centers as well. So there's a lot of new terminology thrown around. And for me, in order to capture the essence and not get lost in the technicalities of language, I really find these recording tools really helpful to learn more and understand more. So again, some folks might use these tools as surveillance or capturing, what went back and forth. But again, for me, I utilize it more as a learning tool to expand my own capacity and understanding. And I think that's something that everyone should also look into, because technology is evolving faster than we're able to process it now. Intellect and intelligence are becoming in sync, and they're becoming we outsourcing that.
Hmm.
LLMs are smarter than we are, and there's no question about it. And the way that they're able to process and combine information is like no one can do, no human brain can do. So, how do we stay ahead of intelligence that's being sort of taken away from us, right? All the master's degrees, all the doctorate, the PhDs, a lot of people who worked a long time to obtain that intellect are now feeling like their reality has shifted and their jobs are at stake, because what people used to come to them for advice for is now could be outsourced, and within the minutes, as you were mentioning earlier, you don't have to call anyone now, you don't have to even go to a doctor, you can like take a picture, put some of the things that are happening in your physical body environment, and it's going to tell you what's going on with you and what you can do if it's an emergency or not. It really gives a great assessment of condition. However, human experience is what is driving innovation. And we do need to be mindful, and this is a big part of the work that I've done in the past, of building jobs. How do we sustain momentum of being an active participant in now new reality where AI dominance and intellect and intelligence are outsourced? And it's a dilemma. It's an ethical dilemma. There's obviously a lot going on right now. Companies are trying to capitalize on some of the innovation and also downsize some of the expenditure. And labor is a big expenditure for any business. So how do we continue being relevant in a time where we are becoming irrelevant and our knowledge and expertise is becoming irrelevant? Is a really deeply philosophical question that I explore in my book, the book about trust infrastructure, and how can that be expanded, sustained, and most importantly, how do we put value on that? Because right now it seems like humanity is being devalued in many ways. So those are super important. And whether you take voice notes or you take notes with by just writing them, or you capture your original thought in some sort of way, we are the creators of creativity, and that's not going away. So we do have to remember that and nurture that in all activities that we do.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because now, sort of with our iPhones, with our just all the LLMs that we could just put on our phones, it's like we have a little professor kind of coaching us, but it's still our thoughts. It's still our ambitions and what we're kind of foreseeing the direction of
And
what
also
our
our
meeting.
delusions. And
Exactly,
our
yes.
delusions. So it's not all good. It's all
Right.
the things. So
Could you
I think
imagine the LLMs going, "Hey, he's having a hallucination." What?
yes. I mean, if you do ask a question, does this make sense? It's not a question to ask LLM. Everything will
Right?
make sense to LLM, and everything will not make sense to. But I think the
Exactly.
key here is um, we all have fears, and
hmm
fears are sometimes something that's been passed down through generation. Sometimes fears is what we see in the media, and sometimes fears is something that's made up. However, now having access to this infinite power that can exponentially blow things out of proportion, we do need to be really attentive in how we use it, and the
hmm
questions that we ask, and some of the questions that we maybe don't ask, because we want to make sure that we are utilizing technology to our benefit. And that's something that I started with. How do we keep that inner trust within ourselves and use technology as an assistant to help us make meaning, and maybe sometimes make faster meaning, or sometimes make meaning that is relevant to our own reality? Because it's very rare that we actually say, okay, my name is Anya. I'm 47 years old. I've lived in New York for 32 years. I have a master's degree. I have 3 adult children, like all the experiences to set a frame of who you are and how how do you want these responses to show up for you in order to make meaning for your intention. And I'll share something with Patrick with you separately. I do have a prompt that no matter what LLM I use, I set that prompt as a baseline so that LLM can use it to know who is talking right
Yes.
now, who is talking, so that I can continuously make sense of building on my own knowledge and my own learning, because this is for me, I think, and then the way that I've been using AI I've entered the age of deep learning. And, for a second, I was thinking, oh, maybe I should go for another degree. But then I realized anything that I need to know or fill the gap with, I can actually, as soon as I'm able to identify that gap, and sometimes it's very painful to identify that gap because we all think we're the best. We all think we know it all and lived it all and seen it all and done it all. However, this is a really important space to really be honest, right? So there's an opportunity to be authentic and honest. What is it that I know? And what is it that I don't know? And what are some of the things that I thought I knew, but they kind of random facts that are not even based in anything meaningful. So once you're able to take inventory of knowledge that you possess, then now you're able to exponentially learn the things that you would want. And for me, again, language has, English is a second language for me. And for me to be able to lead with my voice became something that became really important over the last 3 years, because the experiences that I have are very unique, the lived experiences, the fact of starting 2 companies, the fact of creating massive impact in New York City and building 25,000 jobs. And how do you even do that? How do you even comprehend to begin to do that? So all of that build this dedication for follow through, for deliberate intention and discipline. So, and again, discipline in action, but also discipline in thought, discipline in mind. Because yes, I have my moments where I'm like, oh, I don't know anything. It doesn't mean anything. What I do doesn't matter. And yet I have a note written right in front of me as I'm speaking to you, and I'll read it. My knowledge and understanding create value, and the abundance they unlock to myself and others is my greatest asset. So as I'm working with LLMs, as I'm learning the things that I don't know, as I'm talking to people who have years of experience running power plants, creating energy efficiency plans, and making new meaning of life and experiences that I've never lived and I don't have, I know that I can communicate with them, and they will understand me and I will understand them. And together we're able to create and weave in a new reality of possibility where communities benefit, where we feel that we can trust our own word. And together we can move forward by making those steps. So this is sort of, I know we nearing the end, but I really wanted to make sure that you centering and grounding in ourselves is really important. And whatever rituals and practices, and obviously everyone has their own ways of living and knowing what matters, but it's really important to be grounded in your own self.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thank you for sharing that. That was great. And that's a great thing about just, you mentioned recordings, transcripts, because of course, since this is through Zoom, we have the recording, we have a transcript. But the nice thing there, and Zoom's been doing this for quite a few years, is it'll send you a summary afterwards. Here's your summarization, instead of just a nice big transcript where you have to poke through and go, all right, so you talked about this at this time, and they have to find it. You just ask the tool, it'll give you the exact quote, and that's perfect. But so let's talk a little bit about the book. Do you have a time frame on when it's going to be published?
So it shifts. It depends on my, level of pursuit and attention. And I believe once I have 3 days of complete focus, then the book is going to be ready, or at least the draft of the book. Because right now I have about 6 chapters put together, and I have outline for 6 more chapters. So in essence, I think at least for my practice of writing, I want to ensure that I incorporate some of the real world experiences that have struck me, and I put that in the book that's relevant to the theme of the book. So trust infrastructure, it's a framework. And because I do a lot of work within innovation and government affairs, this is a framework that I'm putting to practice as we speak by facilitating different discussions with community and energy leaders, by ensuring that trust is something that's it's not a made up concept. It's something that we're beginning to lose. Again, with the advancement of technology. So I really want to ensure that what are the moments when I feel like I can no longer trust myself, and those are the breakdown moments, right? Like, oh, nothing matters, what I do doesn't matter. We all have that. And when I get into those moments, the first thing that I do is I start writing, because this is where this book is built from the moments of complete disassembly, right? Disassembly of ego, when my ego is either loud or crushing, right? And it's saying, no, nothing you've done ever makes any sense or has any meaning. And I'm like, okay, now it's my sign to go and write it. So I don't know where I'm going to hit that, low bottom to really get the book completely out. But it's ongoing process. So I go through waves of and some people have a different way of practicing. They write when they are more stable, or when they peaking with joy and creativity comes. So for me, and over the last couple of years, I've really dabbled into mindfulness and mind stillness, and a variety of different old practices of how do you stop reacting to positive or negative experiences and signals that your mind is sending. So I'm not fully there yet. I'm not meditating nonstop, but however, I do find that the second I'm peaking in emotion, very happy or very sad, and again, a lot of this from the external world, those are the signs where I need to start looking deeper and keep bringing out this translation of the meaning that sometimes needs to come out in words. And this is how this book actually was formed, because I've had so much resentment and so much suppressed emotion about the work that I've been doing and seeing around, how communities are struggling, how innovation is a struggle. Being a co-founder is really, or a founder is really difficult. It sounds very glamorous, but in reality, it's a cage that you put yourself in, because you are the one believing in something impossible. And everyone around you is kind of like, I don't know if this is ever going to work. And some days when you're not feeling it, if somebody says that, then you're like, oh, I'm falling apart. This is never going to work. So same thing with writing the book, that dedication, commitment, and discipline of, and thank you for asking when is the date. I'm going to say September 16th, because it's my
birthday.
September 16th.
Perfect.
Answer.
Yeah, I'll put that on the calendar, and don't worry, I'll be budgeting right before that going.
Yeah, check.
I need to be on the pre-order list.
All right.
And I always tell people I need a signed copy, so I'll pay extra. I have no problem.
Amazing. All right. So I have my first sale.
Absolutely. I love books. And usually I have like a massive bookshelf, but I was told to downsize, so now I have to downsize. So I had to get rid of some books. I don't know. I don't like to get rid of
now
books.
You keep only the ones that you write. That makes sense.
Yes. Well, that what I write, and really the people that are personal to me that I know, I keep those for sure. So absolutely. It's a great.
It's important.
And good luck on finding those 3 days.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm still looking myself. I know. like I said, I've got an interview tomorrow where I'm talking to somebody. His book isn't finished yet either, but he's getting close. And I'm to the point in the book where it's like, oh, that's for the next book. I'm like, you've got another one? I'm not even done with this one, and I'm already like, crap, he's got this other one. I did talk to somebody recently. She wrote a, or she's got it all written down. And the way I always look at like the number of pages, because I know how thick a real I like just the way a book feels and the size of it.
Yeah.
It's I like three about 350 pages. And that comes out to be about 75,000 words. And this woman I spoke to, she's like, I've got 190,000 words. I'm like, wait, that's not a book. How that would be a massive book because she was in the correctional system, I think in Illinois.
Hmm.
And she just had so many stories. I'm like, "Yeah, volume one, volume two, volume three, just get it down." And but yeah, the writing process is great. And then once you get to that point of being able to get it edited, proofread, formatted, and out the door, that's a whole other process, which hopefully, see, I've kind of pulled my hair out. It happens. But it's a fun process. And yeah.
Just like anything that you set yourself to do,
Mhm.
if we take on, I I run as a wellness practice. So my the longest distance I run is half marathons. But at the beginning of the run, you don't really think about how it's going to feel at the mile 11, let's say, or mile 12, or to mile 12. That's kind of when you're really pushing yourself to completion. You are focused on the now, and oftentimes you are really surrounded by other people who are doing the same. And I think, thank you so much for bringing me on your podcast and talking
Mhm.
about book writing, because it's important to be in the environment with
Mhm.
other writers, right? So that you feel
Absolutely.
supported and feel like it's possible to accomplish.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's great. And Anya, like I said, I wrote that down. So it's 9:16. All right, we're there. So
All
all
right.
right. Anya, again, thank
Awesome.
you so much
Thank you
for
so
the
much.
time. I'll get all this generated and posted and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
Let's see.